Okay, this is a short talk about quantitative annotation, which is an example for preparing your presentation. And so just to start out, annotation is, I recommend that you start now because you're going to come across information that you think, oh, is really interesting. And then when you're writing your final paper, you're going to go, oh yeah, I remember in that first class, and you're not going to be able to find it. So start right now, make an APA citation of your work, put it on a Word document. Put down your keywords so that you can search for it again, or put the keyword in your title. Put the year in your titles, and name your files so that you can find it again. Write down ideas that you might have, how that might link to something you might do in your future. Write what you liked and disliked about it. Now, in the book on page 486, there is a table of evidence, and that table of evidence lists all those things about the sample and the design. We're not going to do that for this class. You will be doing that in the future, but also put another column in there of what the name of the file is of where you annotated this study. That way when you go back and you say, oh yeah, that's what it was, you'll be able to find it. So annotation is making those notes about the study that you want to remember. Okay, so while you're listening to this, and hopefully you already have opened the article about the hurricane preparedness, and here I have the APA citation. Now note that there is not indentations in the second lines because I couldn't annotate it. I'm sorry, I couldn't indent it on these PowerPoint slides. It's very difficult to do. And then also have open the Word document of evaluating evidence in the beginning. And the reason I say in the beginning is because you guys are baby DMPs, and you're just being reminded in this class of research and how to critique research. In other classes I've had, people often have had a master's degree, and if you do have a master's degree already, perhaps your strength in evidence critique is stronger. But if some of you are coming from BSN to the DMP, then we're going to review some of the research things so that you can catch up. And again, as you take your classes, you will be developing your skills. So in this little case study, I'm the public health nurse, and I work in the neighborhood in West Philadelphia where Inglés House is. Inglés House is a home, a residence of people who are wheelchair bound, and a lot of them are independent. If you drive anywhere in that neighborhood around Belmont Avenue and City Line, you'll see people in wheelchairs just buzzing along. They go out to the grocery store, they go out to the bars, they are out in the neighborhood, and so they're independent. A lot of them are independent. So I'm aware that severe storms and hurricanes are increasing in the area. That's my problem, and hurricane season is approaching. Especially the most storms occur around this time in September and October, and we've already seen that in the news. And so my concern as the public health nurse is to plan a disaster education program for the Inglés House residents because they're independent. Do they know the warning signs? Do they know how to what to do if torrential rains come and their wheelchair stops running? Those are the things I'm starting to think about, and so I'm pulling together information on how to do a disaster education program for my clients. So I've chosen this article, and so at the top of this slide, excuse me, is the APA correct citation. Okay, note, it's 12 font Times New Roman. So you see the last name, comma, first initials, period, and commas. You see the ampersand between the last article, between the second to the last author and the last author. You see the year in parentheses. You see the title. Now, note the capitalization. Again, first word, proper nouns. And the first word after a colon. So here we see the first word hurricane is capitalized, and then South Florida, because that's the name of the area, that is a proper noun. Then italicize the journal title or the book and the volume 34 is the volume. That is italicized as well. Then the issue is not italicized. It's in parentheses. And then the page numbers, where it's found in the journal. Make sure that you have a reference slide. Make sure that you indent the second and any third, fourth lines that you have. Make sure you pay attention to the number of authors, how to list. There's never more than 7 names in an APA paper. Make sure you pay attention to how that is. And then I want you to pay attention. I don't want to see any quotations in this presentation. I want you to read the article, I want you to think about it, and then I want you to put it in your own words. Start doing that right now. Using quotes is really, quote Florence Nightingale, quote Martin Luther King, quote other historical figures, but really when you are reviewing a study, I should not see any quotations. I should see that you are putting it in your own words and crediting the authors that wrote it by putting it in an in-text citation. And that's a table in your APA manual. And then again, be sure to include a conclusion. Sometimes students forget. If I don't have a conclusion written, they forget. Make sure you just wrap up your presentation. And then just timing wise, 1 to 2 minutes per slide is a good pace. So really you should have, like 10 good slides. And then your title slide is extra and your reference slide is extra. Okay, so using the guide. Now, it's called Evaluating Evidence in the Beginning because, again, you're at the very beginning of the program. You're reviewing your research skills. You're going to build on them from here, but I'm not teaching a research class. I'm teaching you how to critique research. And so I want to get right, into it. And so this list of evaluation of quantitative research, and then after that, guidelines for evaluating qualitative research are really the key points that I want you to pay attention to in this class. So concentrate on those yellow highlighted areas when you're reading and when you're thinking about writing your kind of summary to present in your presentation. Okay, so as highlighted, when you're reading the article, examine the problem statement. Is it clearly stated? Does it give justification for the study? Is the problem significant to nursing? Those are the things you're thinking about when you're reading this article. You'll see how I summarize the article of how I think you could do for your presentation. Look at the conceptual or theoretical framework. Is there a conceptual model identified? Is it explained? Does it help you to understand it? And then skip down to the purpose of the study, E. What's the purpose of the study? State that. The researchers wanted to find out, blank. Then go to the operational definitions. Now we're going to talk about concepts and operationalizing concepts. So the concept is the abstract idea, but the operational definition is how we are going to measure it. And so often if there's a survey in your study, that is how they have operationalized that definition. The Beck's depression scale is the operationalized definition of depression, how they're going to measure it. So you could name that because maybe that could be something you could use. You want to name the research design. Typically the authors give you that. You want to give some information about the sample because sample is really important in looking at whether this can be compared or generalized to your sample, to who you are working with, who your population is. You want to definitely spend time on the discussion section. This is where the author is telling you this is what the author feels, this is the things that went well, this is the things that went bad, this is how it compares to other research, this is where you're going in, they suggest is going in the future, what's missing. So read the discussion section really well and then look for those recommendations. What's the author recommending? What's the next step in the author's research? And that would be really helpful. I want to mention here too that you can look at the results and look at what is statistically significant, because if it's statistically significant, it points towards generalizability to the population, from the sample to the population. And so the p-value less than 0.05 or 0.01, which is typical in nursing, is acceptable in nursing, means that it's statistically significant. And that means that the results that you got 5 out of 100 times, the 0.05 p-value, less than, means that 5 times or less out of 100 times that this data was gathered, it happened by chance. And so that's a really low number of times it could have happened to chance. And so that means that 95 other times that this was done, it was related to, or it would be observed again. And it could be related to your results, to your intervention, or to your, that these survey results would come out the same. So I don't want to see any results reported, but that's a little bit of a way how you can start to consider and understand the discussion section. Okay, so here's how I would present this study if I was doing a presentation like yours. And so I would say, so I found that lack of knowledge was one point that was important when presenting a research, when presenting a program on hurricanes. And so Clear, Krause, and Ogilvy studied these adults, and they used the Moon's Hurricane Preparation Questionnaire, and they found that this group did not know where shelters were, this group of elders. Okay, so the next point, this might help me in planning a program because my population is independent. Even though they're wheelchair bound, they are independent. There was a lack of ethnic diversity, and a majority of the clients are able-bodied, so there is some adjustment that has to be made, but the theory might be helpful in understanding how people take preparation, how they prepare for a disaster, and the questionnaire may be helpful. You see at the bottom I have a citation in APA format. So when you're using other authors' work, you need to cite it. So then synthesis, you're going to do your 5 research studies and then you're going to synthesize. So it's a type of compare and contrast, looking at their outcomes. Because the reason you're reading these studies is to address your problem, is to find some solutions, to maybe change, or to see that what you're doing is good. How are the studies similar, and how do they support each other? I am not looking for the sample was the same and that. I'm looking for this outcome said that people needed research, information on preparing for finding shelters, and I see in nursing home research that's also an issue. The nurses did not know how to find shelters. So you're looking at how they are similar and how they're different in their outcomes, not in design or sample size, none of the research stuff, but in the outcomes. And then, does this support how your practice is, or does it support a change for your practice? That's another thing of why you're looking at this problem in your clinical area. Is the policies and procedures that you have effective, or the tool that, the evaluation tool that you're using, or the Dynamap that you're using, are those, good, or is it, should it be changed to another method or another type of equipment? And then be sure to conclude your presentation. And so I hope this is helpful in preparing your presentation. Again, put any questions on the discussion board. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have as you begin to approach assessing and critiquing research. Thank you.